Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, and welcome to Command Power, the show in which we discuss all things Magic the Gathering with a focus on Commander. And today we have a brand new deck for you, but before that, just a quick reminder to please click like and subscribe if you enjoyed my videos. We're well on our way to 1 million subscribers and every single click counts. And today's deck is going to be centered around Rip Spawn Hunter, the 2 colorless, 1 green and 1 white. She's a legendary creature, human survivor, 4/4 with survival. At the beginning of your second main phase, if Rip is tapped, reveal the top X cards of your library, where X is its power. Put any number of creature and or vehicle cards with different powers from among them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So Rip seems like a really powerful commander for the kind of deck where you're looking to survive and have your creatures tapped. Because of that, we're running a lot of ways to tap our creatures before combat so they don't actually have to risk themselves by going in for damage. Of course, we can still attack with them in a normal way, but ideally we want to make sure that they're getting tapped in other less dangerous ways. This also means that we're running a lot of vehicles because they work very well with Rip. Not only are they mentioned on her card, but also we can tap creatures that need to be tapped in order to power up our vehicles. So yeah, this looks like a pretty exciting list, and without further ado, let's get started. Armored Scrapgorger is very nice because it provides mana, it can grow itself to a decent size, and it's also graveyard hate that triggers upon becoming tapped, so it fits perfectly in this deck. Next up, we have Defiant Survivor. This is a pretty solid card that can then allow us to manifest Dread, which means we get to dig through our deck and put other creatures onto the battlefield. Imara Soul of the Accord works very well with all the ways we have to tap creatures. Enduring Vitality is really solid. It gives our creatures a way to tap and also acts as pseudo ramp. Eternal Witness is just a classic commander staple to get a little bit of recursion. Glimmer Seeker can be really good once it gets going. Initially, it's just going to give us a 1/1, but after that, we're drawing cards turn after turn after turn. House Cartographer is much better than it looks. It actually guarantees that we hit our land drops, which is always very important. Vespera Sentinel is a ramp card that allows us to tap our creatures for extra value. Catilda Dawnheart Prime is going to help tap our humans, including our commander. It's also a really good mana sink later on in the game. Kona Rescue Beastie is one of the most powerful cards in the deck once we have our engines online. This being able to put a permanent into play every single turn is really solid. Miriam Herd Whisperer gives hexproof to all of our mounts and vehicles. That's really strong, and it also grows them when they attack. Nomade Shepherd works really nicely with all of the creatures that we have that want to be tapped. Ornery Tumblewag is really solid in this deck. Putting counters on stuff is already good in the first place, but then being able to double those counters when we attack is very powerful. Reluctant Role Model works very well with the counter sub-theme we're running in the deck. It grows itself fairly big, makes it so it has to be answered, and then grows something else. Samite Herbalist gives us a really nice reward for tapping it. Scrying and gaining a life is really solid. Sarith the Viper's Fang can protect our creatures and also allows us to reuse those creatures that have abilities when they become tapped. Savior of the Small is very nice recursion in this deck. It allows us to get stuff back over and over. Scaretiller ramps us, which is really solid and also works very nicely with our Manifest Dread cards. Seedborn Muse can be really powerful with certain creatures that trigger whenever they become tapped. Being able to do that during every player's turn is really good. Seraphic Steed gives us a steady stream of flyers, and luckily our commander is enough to saddle it by itself. Shrewd Storyteller gives us a nice little bonus for tapping it, 1 counter every turn. It may not seem like that much, but it certainly adds up. Donnybrook Schoolmaster can be tapped quite a bit in this deck, which means it's going to provide a steady stream of 1/1s. The Wandering Rescuer can absolutely blow out our opponents by giving our stuff hexproof at instant speed, and after that, since we have so many ways to tap our stuff instantly, it can be very hard to deal with our creatures without dealing with this first. Tyvar the Pummeler is a great board pump effect that also just gives us a really good way to tap our creatures for free, and also he's incredibly hard to deal with through board wipes and destroy effects. Veteran Survivor gives us a little bit more graveyard hate and eventually grows itself into a decent threat on its own. And Wily Duke Atian Hero is very solid in the deck. It's going to draw us cards and gain us life, and since we have a couple of ways to untap our stuff, it can do it multiple times per turn. Moving on to sorceries, I wanted to highlight one last job. This is really good in the deck because we're running quite a few mounts and vehicles. Split Up is also incredibly good in this deck since we have so much control over whether our creatures are tapped or untapped. And moving on to instants, Clever Concealment is always good, but it's even better in a deck where we want to be tapping our things. Getting to convoke this is just incredibly powerful in this deck. Final Showdown is a board wipe at instant speed. I've been playing more and more of this in Commander, and it's incredibly powerful. You blow people out with this so easily. Moving on to artifacts, we have Cultivator's Caravan. This taps for mana, which is always nice, and then it can also be a creature that allows our other cards to tap. Essica's Chariot is a really decent vehicle that can provide us value through giving us extra copies of tokens. Halo Fountain is a very solid card that can provide us win cons in this deck if we go long enough. We're very likely to get quite a few creatures with all the tokens we have, and eventually this could just be a way to win the game on the spot. Honor Worn Shaku is solid. We're not running that many legendary cards, but still, even just with our commander, this is a great way to get some extra mana. Luxurious Locomotive is a great way to get a ton of treasures and ramp really hard. Mighty Servant of Loco is a really solid vehicle that can draw us a bunch of cards, and it's difficult to deal with and block. Mobile Garrison works really nicely with cards that we can tap multiple times per turn. There's a couple of those in the deck, such as Wily Duke. Mobile Homestead can provide us some ramp very nicely, and since we have a couple of mounts in the deck, it can sometimes even get haste. Paradise Mantle is a great one to put onto our creatures to get some extra mana. Parhelion 2 is one of the best vehicles in the game to attack with. It just provides so much power on an attack trigger. Reaver Titan is another incredibly annoying vehicle that can end the game in a hurry. It's very difficult to deal with, and it deals a ton of damage on attack. Reckoner Brankbuster can provide us bodies, draw cards, and can also eventually accrue itself to smash into the red zone. Relic of Legends is basically another version of Honor Worn Shaku. Sky Sovereign Consul Flagship is another great vehicle that can actually act as removal on attack, which we certainly need in this deck. Smuggler's Copter comes down nice and early, can provide us some very good card filtering, and allows our creatures to tap. Springleaf Drum is one of the best ways in Commander to tap your creatures without much trouble. Sting the Glinting Dagger works really well with all of those creatures that have tap triggers, but also we are leaving ourselves shields down quite a bit in this deck, so it's great to have a way to untap a creature and have some defense. Moving on to enchantments, we have Cryptolith Rite, which is yet another way for us to tap our creatures for mana. That being said, if it's a bit out of your budget, you can substitute it for another vehicle, seeing as we already do have quite a few ways to tap our stuff. Elven Chorus gives us yet another way to tap our creatures for mana, and actually can provide some card advantage as well. And Glare of Subdual is one of my favorite ones. It makes it very difficult for our opponents to deal with our board because we tap down all their good blockers and eventually overwhelm them, particularly since we're making tokens. Finally, moving on to our lands, I wanted to highlight Buried Ruin, which is a great way to rebuy our artifacts that have hit the graveyard. Gavany Township is a great mana sink for all the mana we're going to be producing in this deck. And Scavenger Grounds gives us a nice way to deal with our opponent's graveyard. And in this deck, we do actually have quite a few bits of graveyard hate. So there you have it. That has been my Rip Sworn Hunter deck tech. What do you think about this one? As you probably know, Selesnya is not usually my favorite combination, but I'm quite excited to put this one together and give it a try. Seems like it could play quite well and be pretty fun. But what do you think? Are there any cards you think I missed? Any cards you think I shouldn't have included? Let me know in the comment section below. I always make sure to read all of your comments. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click like or subscribe. It really helps the channel. And until next time, take care.